Are we all sanitized?
Oh, yeah.
From Hong Kong, Chicago, and the city of Stoke-on-Trent, this is the Classic Lenses Podcast. Hello, and welcome to episode 110. My name is Simon Forster, and I'm joined by Johnny Sisson and Perry G. Hello, Johnny.
Hello.
And hello, Perry.
Hello, hello.
Right, well, first of all, sorry for making everybody wait for 2 weeks. I think sorry is the correct one. I'm not sure if we've done people a favour there or not, but yeah, with a bit of luck, where we'll manage to do a complete show with all three of us as well, getting through all the way to the end, so fingers crossed. So, first of all, I just want to thank Hamish Gill with his Pixelator and Nate Johnson with his Negative Lab Pro Lightroom plugin for being with us, well, 2 weeks ago, certainly for the last episode, and helping us to discuss film digitising in great detail, a show we've been threatening to make for nearly a year, and we absolutely did it. So thanks, guys, for your help on that. I think it was, I think we went into as much as we probably could have done. I know there was at least one person who believed that perhaps we went a little bit too far on that one, but there you go. We can't please everybody. This week, let's head over to Hong Kong and so what you've been up to, Perry?
See what happens when we don't do a show for a week, when we miss a show. We really got to avoid that. Anyway, I didn't do shit. Johnny?
I haven't done anything. I'm sitting at home.
And I've done nothing too. Okay, so shall we move on to emails, or was there actually something that happened there, Perry?
Yeah, I got a couple of things going on, because it since we last recorded when we missed an episode, things have changed somewhat, the context. So there are a few things that I've been doing back in the before times. And a couple things now here in the after times. Before the world went into sort of complete meltdown, I was looking for something to shoot that. Something to shoot that those Exakta lenses on, because I just don't want to shoot an Exakta. So I found a really nice local deal on a Topcon RE Super, which I bought from a really lovely guy. And it was an old man who's had this lens for ages, but his eyes are starting to go. He's had this camera for ages, so his eyes are starting to go. And he can't focus on these SLRs anymore. And when I met up with him to pick it up, it's such a nice camera that I was kind of sitting there looking at it, checking out all its little bells and whistles. And then before we parted, he asked me if he could wind it and fire it one last time before I left.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, so that I always love, I always love moments like that. It adds a little bit of meaning to a camera when you know that someone has kind of lovingly used it throughout their life, right?
Yeah,
you do realize he says that to about every camera that he sells, and he's sold about 1,000 this year already.
Yeah, probably. I mean, we had a nice long chat about all the other stuff that he was shooting instead in the meantime. So he definitely has plenty of stuff at home that he's got to play with now that this RE Super is in my hands. But I do love stories like that. Like my Nikon FM2. I used to have two of them, and I sold the silver one, but I can't sell the black one because the black one I bought from this young lady who essentially her father passed away, and it was one of his cameras from his collection. And then after I bought it off her, she just said to me, "Promise me you'll use it." And I was like, yeah, I'll definitely use it. So that's one that I just can't bring myself to sell because of that sort of sentimental story,
Yeah.
So this Topcon RE Super, that's a camera that I was after for quite some time, and I bought one with a 58 1.4. So I was really, really happy when I picked up a really good one, good lens, good camera. And I thought that camera was wonderful until I actually used it. Have you used yours yet?
I fired a couple of frames through it, yeah. And I've played around with it a whole bunch, but I haven't gone out and shot with it very much because the world is falling apart. No, but it's there's a couple things that I really like about this camera. as far as SLRs go. Number one, the winder is incredible. This is like the nicest. Mechanically, I think this is the nicest SLR that I've ever used. It's even nicer than I think my Alpas, just in terms of like the way that it's put together and all the little touches. That's like you have one, right? It's got an M3-esque winder in terms of just how smooth and satisfying that thing is to pull.
Yeah.
And then I also love, a couple little things about it. The way the film back opens, or in particular the rewind dial. When you turn it, it raises up by itself, and then when you turn it back, it goes back down by itself. And it's just like one of those little touches that these engineers made back in the day that they just don't do anymore. Yeah,
it's nice. It's nice when you come across a feature that doesn't have to be there, but it's just nice to be there, isn't it?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And you can tell that this was made in the era when Topcon was still pumping out its really high quality stuff. Because back then it was like Nikon made all of the optics and stuff for the Japanese Navy, and Topcon was making the stuff for the Army. And then after the war, when the U.S. military was choosing its cameras, I think they were choosing between this and the F, and between 1961 and 1973 or something. They chose the RE Super over the Nikon F as the official sort of camera that they issued for the U.S. military, right?
They did for the Navy anyway. I'm not sure about the Army.
Right, fair. And you can tell why. I mean, it's beautifully made. Even after all this time, the finder is really big. It's not the easiest to focus with, but it does the job. And everything is just working perfectly and just so well crafted. It's wonderful.
Yeah.
I was going to say, remind me not to buy cameras that have been chosen by the American Navy then, because a prior one was the Kodak Medalist, which is another camera which, just like the Topcon, in my opinion at least, is a great looking camera and has wonderful features, but absolutely horrible to use, in my opinion.
Yeah, but with the Medalist, they didn't really have a choice, right? They had to go American with that one.
Yeah. But what it is with the Topcon though, it's just too square for me. It's just way too chunky. I wasn't keen on the viewfinder because you've got that almost like gouged out underneath the glass of the mirror where the metering is, and that steals some light. And it's just the feel of the thing against my face. It just didn't appeal to me. I like to hold it, and touch it and take the head off it and say, oh, I could use this as a waist level finder and all that kind of stuff. But none of those things I did, and I just was so happy to finish off I think I did 2 rolls of film in it, and I was thinking, that's it. I don't need to do that anymore.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I mean, Simon, are you a left-eyed shooter or a right-eyed shooter?
Right.
Oh, okay, because I mean, I switched. I had to train myself to switch from a left-eyed to a right-eyed shooter, and I do find this camera of all the SLRs I've used to be like a little bit nicer for shooting with a right eye, because that little what is it, the film winding thingy will stab you in the face quite hard because it's made of like just a solid hunk of metal. I see what you mean, though. The focusing screen, I wish it had the focusing screen that's in the Spotmatic, because it's not the easiest to focus. Like, the split image is hard to use, and then the little circle outside and then the area outside of that are not particularly clear, but that's SLRs for you.
Yeah.
So I got this. I mean, it's a beautiful camera. To me, it feels nice in the hand. But then again, I'm used to using Leicas where there's nothing like vaguely resembling a grip or anything on the side of it. But I got this to use with my Exakta lenses, obviously the 58 f2 Biotar and the Schneider Xenon that Johnny and I have sequential serial numbers for. But then I was on Mike Ekman's site and I read that the Xenon doesn't actually work properly with this camera because the rear element sticks out a little bit at infinity and it will jam the mirror. Like, the mirror will hit it if you're focused at anything further than like 10 to 15 feet.
Yeah, there's a few lenses that that don't work exactly right on these. Are not, you know what I mean? The older Exakta lenses are not entirely interchangeable. So,
but apart from the auto aperture, are there many others that have like protruding rear elements that will hit the mirror?
Not that, but I'm looking for a lens to put on mine. I don't see it. But there's some with the auto, the arm on the side, and I don't think all of those mount either. I've got one somewhere in this room. But yeah, it's not, not everything is entirely going to work on these, as compared to, an old, as opposed to one of the older Exaktas, right?
Gotcha.
That's kind of like the problem is the lens mount is doing more than it ever really probably should have done. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like it's got a really small throat, and it's sort of like M42. Eventually, they just gave up and came up with K-mount because it was a better mount for auto aperture, and even the way Nikon's problems as well, of hanging onto the mount for too long. It's the same sort of thing. But so yeah, some of the Topcon stuff is a little bit. It's not entirely interchangeable between Exaktas and Topcons.
So yeah, so what they did, right? Would it be fair to say that they chose an existing lens mount because there were loads of lenses from East Germany and stuff, and then they tried to make the lens mount do more than it was originally.
I think that's fair. Yeah, I mean, I think that's a fair assessment. Yeah.
Okay. Well, right now I've got some serious Exakta gas, and the only other lens that I particularly committed to picking up is the Topcon 35 2.8. But are there any other Exakta mount lenses that you guys would recommend as particularly nice? Because I just think these lenses are beautiful. I love them. Oh, and I have a Pen F adapter on the way.
I can think of a nice lens that I've got an Exakta, and it's called the Carl Zeiss.
Oh, screw you!
75mm f1.5 Biotar.
Oh yes. Apart from that one, I've used up my kidney quota for this year.
There's a 20. What is it? 25 millimeter? I think they call it a 25. The Exakta or the Topcon is. Yeah, if you can find one, they've gone. They're crazy expensive. There's also either a 100 or a 105. And there's is it the 85 is probably harder to find than any of the others. Topcon 85 millimeter. I'm pretty sure it's 85 millimeter.
So Mike Novak speaks very, very highly of the 100 millimeter, I think f3.5 Topcon.
Yeah.
RE Auto. It does look like it's so compact for 100 millimeter.
Yeah. Oh, it's the 85 millimeter 1.8.
Oh boy.
Good luck.
I don't think I've ever seen one of those even on the internet.
Oh, it's insane. Yeah.
The 25 that you mentioned, is that the one with the filters that clip onto the back of the lens?
I don't know. That's a good question, Perry. Let me take a look. I'm trying to see it.
Because I was browsing eBay a while back after I got this camera, and there was one wide-angle Topcon RE Auto lens. The listing on eBay came with all the filters, and basically there's like a bayonet right behind the rear element of the lens, and then you clip the filters onto that bayonet.
Oh, okay.
Which I don't know if it was a 25, but it was a wide angle and it looked kind of cool.
I'm looking at the pictures to see if it. Oh yeah, I see what you're talking about now. Yeah, it looks like it does click on the rear. That's cool.
Okay, yeah. So you got to get one of those with the filter set, because the Schneider Xenon that we both have, there's I don't think there's a filter thread in it. Is there? Yeah,
you can use a series filter. I have a Series 6 adapter on mine on the front, and just use the filters that way.
So does the adapter screw in? Because there's a thread, but the thread is like level with the glass.
Yeah,
so you wouldn't be able to put a filter directly onto that without touching the glass.
Yeah, you just put a filter adapter on there and do it that way.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
There's another lens as well, and that's the it goes by some other names, but I know one called an Optinar 35mm f2.5. Which is currently for sale on my eBay shop for $69.99, and that's also goes under the name of Fujita and Fujita. I think that's right.
Oh, that crazy thing.
Yes.
That lens. It's one of the first lenses of a certain kind of design, right? I was reading a little bit about that a while back, but I've forgotten everything.
I think it's the first Japanese retrofocus lens.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
It's also one of those lenses that's impossibly heavy for its size.
Oh, like the Schneider Xenon is as well. It's ridiculously heavy for how small it is.
Yeah.
So, but that lens came in Exakta? I thought it was for Asahi Flex.
It might have been, but this one I've got is on, it's Exakta mounts, which I'm assuming it was actually designed for Topcon, I would imagine.
That makes sense.
But one thing I've noticed, though, and this goes back to what Johnny was saying about, there are differences between Topcon RE and Exakta, to some degree at least anyway. And I mean, certainly on this one, I could not fit this lens into my Exakta adapter for neck, so I haven't actually been able to use this lens. It's slightly fatter than the Exakta.
Yeah, that's another kind of good point about the Exakta stuff, is that they are not all going to be compatible with all adapters.
Why is that the case? Because on my adapter, I just have an Exakta to Leica M adapter. I know the Biotar fits fine, and then the Xenon, I have to like wiggle it around to get it in.
If you look at the back of the lens, you'll see why, right? I'm just looking for two Exakta. Yeah, so I have an Exakta lens in front of me, and I have a Topcon lens in front of me. And if you look at the Topcon lenses, they've got the extra pins for the auto aperture stuff.
Yeah.
Hold on 2 seconds. Let me just grab my. So I'll get my two.
So there's at least 2 extra pins on them. So that can cause problems.
Wait, but then the lens that Simon's talking about has a kind of old school. Is it more old school looking Exakta mount, or is it more like the Topcon RE autos?
No, it's old school. There's no obvious difference between this and the my Zeiss.
Right, because the two that I have are also old school, but the Xenon doesn't fit that well in my adapter, and they don't have any of the kind of Topcon RE auto bells and whistles.
I think it's as much down to the adapter than the lenses. Because I've tried this Optinar in an Exakta camera, and it fits fine. So it's more about the adapter than it is about the actual mount itself.
Yeah, that makes sense, because same with me. Both lenses fit fine in both of my cameras, both my Exakta mount cameras, but just one doesn't fit in the adapter without a little bit of like fiddling around.
Yeah.
Oh, that's weird.
Yeah, I was annoyed because I decided that I'll get another adapter, but I didn't want to buy another Exakta adapter for neck. So I thought, well, what shall I get it to? And I thought, I'll get it to Canon EOS. And so I did it. So I got one for that to try it on that camera, and then found that it hits the mirror. So I've been done for. That's the point though. I haven't actually tried my Biotar on the Canon, which that could be good. So I do like that Canon, especially for certain kinds of shots. There's just a look that Canon 5D Mark I gives that's just a little bit special. So,
and the Biotar will balance so nicely on a sort of larger DSLR.
Yeah, it's got the grip with it as well, so perfect. Oh yeah, I'm
Right.
going to do that. That's it.
Yeah.
I'm now inspired.
Oh, dude, I haven't got my 5D Classic out for ages. Putting Exakta lenses on it would be a lot of fun. Yeah, go on.
I was just going to say, I don't know what I've done with the adapter now. I probably threw it across the room in rage, so I might have to buy another. Oh dear, it'll turn up.
What about the ingenue lenses, the wide angle retrofocal? I think it's a 28 millimeter and the 90 millimeter. Have you guys tried those?
No, I've held the wide angle one, but never actually tried it. Actually, that was a point. Didn't Michael Bartasek pick one up in a bargain bin for $10?
He just got one for dirt cheap.
Yeah,
$10.
Yeah, and then he went back and then pulled some other something else out of the bin, and then something else and something else. So yeah, he had a good trip to that store.
Well, I've heard a lot of mixed reviews about the ingenue, but the pictures that he shared look really, really good.
Recently at the camera shop, we had like 2 of those things come in. Almost like one each day, 2 days in a row. And the boss is like, oh, yeah. We used to see those things. Like they used to be like so common. He's like, oh, yeah, we used to see those all the time. So they were apparently very, very, very common lenses at one point, which is probably why he got them out of a bargain bin, because at one point, that's exactly the sort of thing that would have ended up in a bargain bin.
Uh-huh. I mean, they're not hard to find in Hong Kong. They're just crazy expensive.
Yeah.
Both the 90 and the 28.
Yeah. It's definitely the name.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Brand inflation. Okay. So no other Exakta lenses you guys would highly recommend that I feed my gas with?
Well, I mean, I don't know. Are you talking about the Topcon versions or the older?
I think I know about the Topcon ones. I'm thinking more of the older, because they're just so pretty, the old Exakta lenses.
Yeah.
So I like just playing with them as much as I like.
I mean, there's the other Xenon lenses. There's several other semi-auto aperture versions of the Xenon lenses that are. I mean, I think they're definitely worth checking out. I mean, honestly, they all render about the same, which is really mushy if you're close to wide open, but they're incredibly well made. I mean, I've got a couple of the older semi-auto Xenons that are like that heavy nickel chrome stuff.
Yeah.
And they are just, I mean, they're unbelievably well made. I mean, almost just completely over the top. So, I mean, those are interesting, but they're honestly, I've shot them. And then I've shot that one that we have the same serial number lens on, right? And they don't really render any differently. Matter of fact, I like the older one better. So I like the preset one better.
But the newer one won't hit the mirror, right?
See, that's why I would like to go rummage in my bin for a minute, because it won't hit the mirror, but I think that it won't mount correctly on the camera because of the auto arm. And I'm not 100% sure on that theory unless I try it, but
are they not in the same place, the shutter for the Topcon and the Exakta? Wait, no, they can't be.
No, they are not in the same place.
Yeah,
they're not in the same place. Yeah, so the shutter button on the Exaktas is on the other side, and the auto,
it's on the left. Yeah,
right, and the little auto switch, that's how you would trigger the shutter. So as I recall, I'm trying to think back to when I had it on the camera. It doesn't, it doesn't work the way it would on an Exakta body. So it's a little weird.
Oh, that's lame. Because there's one version of the Xenon that I want to try, because there's one that has like a clear window on the distance scale.
That's the one I have. Hold on a second. I'm gonna go find it.
Okay, because I'll wait till it gets back, because this lens has like a really cool design feature that I just find really nifty. Oh, he's back.
Yeah. So this is not the clear window version, but it's very similar. It's got like a little cutout. I mean, it's actually pretty similar to the Topcon lens. It's got a little cutout area for to show you the distance scale, and then it's got another for the aperture, and then it's got on the left side of the lens, it's got the little auto arm, and I'm gonna try to mount this on my.
And does it change color? Like when you change the aperture, is this the one where you get the little red? Red thing?
That's the depth of field scale.
Yeah.
The depth of field scale moves in on the sides.
Yes, I really like that.
Yeah, it's a cool design. So I'm gonna try to fire this thing. No, this is not hitting the mirror.
Oh, so nice. Even at infinity.
That was close up. Hold on, let me try it again.
Because it'll only be at infinity where there's an issue.
Oh yeah, it just hit the mirror.
Ah, damn it.
So it does hit the mirror. And let's see. All the other, I mean, it mounts okay, but yeah, it definitely mounted okay, and now it won't mount because the mirror is locked up. So go figure. So now I have to reset the mirror. So yeah, that does not fire correctly. Got to put it on a legit Exakta body, apparently.
Oh, that's what this whole project is trying to avoid.
Just put it on a Minolta. I put these. I don't even use. I put these things on my Minoltas and they work fine.
Then I would have to get a Minolta.
Yeah, that's okay.
No, I refuse. Okay, cool. So, well, if any of our listeners or any of you guys think of any sweet Exakta lenses, let me know because they're super cool. And I can't say that the RE Super is the best SLR focusing experience, but it's just better than an Exakta. So,
you need the 85mm Tessar.
Ooh,
2.8 Tessar.
Ooh, that sounds fun. That does sound fun.
Yeah, it looks like you know how the Biotar that the 75 or whatever.
Oh,
how it's got the skinnier barrel and then the fatter head on it. It's the same sort of design.
Oh, it's the one that looks like a baby version of the Biotar?
Yeah.
Oh, nice. Yes.
What
you have that, right?
What f-stop is that?
2.8.
Well, that's a bit fast, isn't it, for a Tessar?
No, think about it. It's like an
85mm. That's very fast for a Tessar, surely.
No, it's a 2.8. Like, lots of Tessars are 2.8s.
Yeah, but they're smaller focal lengths. So
it's the same as if it was on a Rolleiflex or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So they're
3.5s, aren't they, on the Rollies?
Yeah, but I have the 2.8 Tessar on my Rolleiflex A model.
Okay.
So no, it's a thing. Mm-hmm. It's a thing. Okay. You just don't see them very often, but it's a cool lens. It's they tend to have real stiff focus because they use like machine oil in them or something. But yeah, it's a neat lens. It handles nicely, that's for sure.
Another I don't think it's entirely compatible. It certainly is with adapters, but you've also got the Mamiya Prismat MP lenses, which I've got one of those lenses. Never tried the camera, but that particular camera used a modified Exakta mount as well, and I've got I have this camera, this lens just for the sake of owning it, and I think the one reason why I've kept it is because I remember being in a discussion probably in a forum somewhere, and somebody said something about different 50mm Canon lenses. And then somebody said that they only ever made them in X, 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 and X, and I was thinking, oh right, okay. So I decided to post my picture of my Canon OM. That's what it's called, a Canon OM 50mm f1.9, just to prove somebody wrong. And I think I'll keep that camera just so I might be able to do that again one day.
Oh yeah, I forgot you had that like super rare random OM lens.
Yeah, and it even gets swirly bokeh as well. So Canon that gives swirl. So I need to use that again as well, really, don't I?
Yeah.
Many lenses need to be tried again that I've got in the back of the cupboard.
The only person I know who has that lens.
Yeah. That's probably another reason why I keep it.
All right. So that's Exakta talk over. Now, in our sort of self-isolation phase, I've been sort of messing around with trying to adapt some other random lenses. And I finally managed to get my hands on the optical block of a Helios 33, which is a cinema lens from a Soviet camera called, I think, the Kinor, like a Soviet movie camera. This thing is tiny, and I got one for about 40 pounds. New old stock as well, so it's in super nice condition. Yeah, and so I went paid a visit to my friends over at Little Garden, or the one employee who is still manning the retail front of the shop. And she helped me put together a little build to adapt it to Sony, which involved a little bit of blue tack, and an M42 helicoid. So that's cool because this lens, I don't know if you guys have seen one or tried one or used one, but I've been after one of these for ages.
I've seen it in pictures, and it looks quite similar to a black LTM39 Jupiter 8, doesn't it? But I've never actually seen one in the flesh.
It's about 1/5 of the size of a Jupiter 8 LTM. Yeah, it's tiny, tiny, tiny. Because it was made for I think Super 16 format.
Yeah. So
the lens with the optical block is basically just the glass plus an aperture control, and it almost covers full frame. So up close, it covers with a little bit of vignetting, and then you get a tiny bit of black corners when you're at infinity, but really not that bad for a lens of this size, 35 millimeter f2 to actually more or less cover a full frame, and it'll cover APS-C 100%, no problem, is super, super sweet. So I think this is one of those maybe hidden little sleepers. You can find them on eBay that sort of mounted into Industar bodies or converted to M39 or LTM, but those will cost you a lot more than just the optical block. It's really not that difficult to adapt. A 28 millimeter like screw thread on the back, so you just need a 28 to M42 ring, and you're good to go. So I'm super chuffed that this build has actually worked out. As far as Helios lenses go, everyone knows the Helios 44 and all the random ones, but I don't know how many cinema lenses they made in the old Soviet Union, but this is definitely one of them.
I think there's an absolute shed load of them. It's a whole different world again of variety.
Yeah, it's not C-mount though. It's not a C-mount lens. It's definitely a larger sort of rear than that, and then the flange distance is pretty similar to LTM, I would say. It's not exactly the same, but it's relatively close in terms of like the helicoid size you have to use. So it gives them a nice swirly bokeh. It's softish, wide open, but fairly crisp in the center. And then once you stop it down a stop or two, it becomes really crisp. But it's got like some of the craziest flare that I've seen in a lens that more or less covers full frame. So I'm gonna have a lot of fun with this one because it's cheap and cheerful build.
Very cool. And I just paused because there's a big bug on my microphone. Like I looked down and there was this big bug staring at me.
Ooh, what kind of bug?
It's this time of year they all kind of start to wake up. I'm not sure what it's like a beetle type of thing. And this time of year they're like, hey, what's going on? And they're like all over the place. What is it? I'm not sure the name of this thing. I'm trying to get a good picture of it because it probably yeah.
Macro shooting.
It's really funny. But yeah, it's this time of year, like right when it gets like starts to get springtime. Of course, there's like snow on the ground, but whatever. So I'm trying.
Yeah, it's snowing in Chicago right now, isn't it? One of my friends out there.
Yeah, it was snowing last night. All right, I gotta go relocate this bug to a plant. I'll be right back.
Oh man, this hippie.
Okay, all good.
You've earned
Bug
your
free.
good karma.
Yeah. I always go put them in the front room with all the plants.
Are you one of these like no kill guys?
Oh yeah, totally. That's absolute. Unless it's people. Yeah, I'm a totally no kill the bugs, no kill the spiders.
Oh man. Well, yep. You got your good karma for the day. All good. Did you get a good shot of it?
I did. Yeah, it's pretty funny. This might be my new like profile, Classic Lenses podcast profile thing, because it's a microphone with a bug on it. I'm just looking at the pictures. Oh, I made fry bread last night, so I have pictures of my fry bread too.
What the hell's fry bread?
It's basically you take about a pound of Crisco and you make some dough and you fry it.
Wait, what's Crisco?
I was going to say, yeah. What's that?
Crisco?
Yeah.
Guess what Crisco is? It's shortened. Like shortening.
Oh, shortening.
Yeah.
Well, I know what shortening is.
Yeah, it's shortening. Crisco. So you take a pound of shortening and you it's deep fried
fat.
bread.
So
yeah.
Sorry. Yeah. So that's just what you're frying the bread in is Crisco. Okay.
Yeah.
I thought I thought there was something called Crisco that you made and into dough or something like that.
No, I didn't make my own Crisco.
Right. Okay.
I just made bread fried in Crisco.
Okay.
So you're just sitting there. I had a mental image of you sitting there just like eating a pound of butter.
Yeah, it's kind of like that, actually. That's pretty much what you're doing when you eat fry bread. You're eating, because you put butter in the bread and then you deep fry it.
Does it taste like butter?
No, it just tastes like grease.
Oh, that's not as exciting, because I made a really stupid decision because my girlfriend and I went out to get a vegetarian meal a little while back, and then we decided that we would go vegetarian for this whole week. And so you had me excited there for a moment with like vegetarian butter.
Vegetarian butter?
Doesn't exist.
No.
I don't think so.
Okay. Anyway, moving on. No, they totally exist. Like plant butter, right? What's that? I can't believe it's not butter stuff. Isn't that plant butter?
How do they milk the plants in the first place?
They squeeze. This
is a bit like almond milk now, isn't it? And
oh yeah, I saw that video how they make almond milk with the little yeah, just like that. They put them on the little almond teats, and then they the little milk sucker things.
Yeah. Those plant udders.
Plant udders, exactly.
There you go. All right, but moving swiftly on. And the last thing I'm going to attempt is the old guy who I bought the Topcon RE Super off of. He told me in passing that he uses his Leitz Elmar 9cm f4 LTM lens on his Hasselblad. And so I was like, oh, they cover 6x6, and he's like, yeah, quite easily, because the black version that I have, I think all of them, right? All of the old ones, the optical block just screws off.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So the today when I was at home doing nothing, I took that optical block off and I was just kind of like holding it up to the window, and it does look like it will cover or very close to cover a 6x6 negative. So I decided. Well, I texted Lil Garden and I told them, hey, can you help me put together a Pentax 6.7 build for this lens? So I'm going to be heading over there with a couple of random bits and pieces to try to essentially adapt this Leica lens and a couple of others to Pentax 6.7 and see how that turns out.
That is very cool. I have no doubt that it should cover just fine. I mean,
I think it will. From my my test where I just projected my window onto a box of surgical masks.
Yeah.
The image circle in focus looked more than large enough to cover a medium format negative.
Yeah, I believe it.
So that's super cool, because then all I need is helicoid and a Pentax 6.7 conversion ring, which they have in stock, and then I can use them. I have no idea what that's going to look like shooting a 35mm vintage 35mm lens on a Pentax 6.7, whether that's going to look good or it's going to look like crap.
It's going to look as good as you make it, really, isn't it? Because the assumption's going to be the further out from the centre, the funkier it's going to get, and it's just going to matter. It's just going to be about the what you're actually taking. I mean, actually, that reminds me, and I've shared these pictures with you. The other day, I was taking a photograph of some lens caps, and which that sounds really exciting, I know, and they were close-ups to some degree of a load of lens caps that I've made, and more about those later. And one shot was taken. Because I was struggling to get exactly the right focal length for this particular shot, the way that I was shooting it and so on. It was an unusual circumstances, and it just so happened that the lens that did the job best in terms of focal length was the Cole's Eye 75mm Biotar. And I'm thinking, well, that is not really the obvious kind of shot to do a relatively close product shot, because it's well known for its interesting out of focus areas, and when you're trying to get a product shot, that's not really what you're interested in. And but the thing is that the first shot that I took was with a different camera, because I had an 18-55, I think the original DX lens for Nikon. And I put it onto my D500 and thought, well, this will do the job. It doesn't matter. It's just a product shot and it'll be fine. And so I took the shot, and it was relatively close. Therefore, it was almost in the macro territory. And even though I shot it like about, I think, f10, f11, something like that, what was in focus was fine. But the out of focus area, simply because of the shallow depth of field, it was shocking. In my opinion, it was distorted. It was bordering on swirly. It just wasn't good for what I was trying to achieve. Now, if I was trying to achieve a different kind of shot and I wanted something funky going on, then it would have been absolutely fine. But when I thought to myself, well, I need to find something else I can use, and so I thought, well, I'll just try this 75mm Biotar, and I stopped it down to, I think, f12, f11, some that kind of area. Took the shot, and it did a straight shot, and it did exactly what I wanted it to do. Everything that was in focus, I wanted to be in focus, and where the focus was starting to fall away, it just did it in a very natural, smooth way. And you look at the two shots, and I'll say and I ask people, so which shot was taken with the Biotar? And everybody would point at the shot that was taken with the Nikon. It was odd, but the point I'm making there again is just like, whether that Elmar is going to perform on a larger format camera like a Hasselblad, it's simply going to be down to what it is that you're taking. So if you're going to be doing some kind of portrait work or something where you want something pretty good in the center and then interesting things going on in the outer focus areas, then I would imagine it'll be very, very good.
Yeah, so you've tried your Aero Ektar on your Hasselblad, right?
No. There's reasons for that, and that's because the Hasselblad uses it doesn't have a focal plane shutter.
Oh, right.
I mean, there are ways of doing it, and you can put the thing into bulb mode, and then you're going to use low ISO film and so on. There are some Hasselblads out there, and M from Emulsive has got one of those that has a focal plane shutter on it as well. They're a little bit temperamental, but if you've got a good one, then yeah, that's a great way to actually use that lens with that camera.
Well, I'm wondering if the conventional wisdom that you have mentioned before, Simon, applies here, where when you're using a lens designed for a smaller format or a larger format, that it's actually going to perform better because it's resolving more than the format needs.
Yeah, that is the conventional wisdom. I think, and we've talked about this before, and there are views that that's right to some degree, and in some degrees it's absolutely not. So it's hard to say. I mean, in the case of the Aero Ektar, it's a really old design, and I suppose it was also designed for a very specific use, which is not the way that people actually use it today. So I would say that the wide open sharpness on an Aero Ektar is nothing special by any standards, but whether or not a smaller format lens works better when it's expanded onto a larger format. It's going to be whatever's going on in how it deals with the outer areas is going to be the biggest differentiator. But yeah, it would make sense that the center of the image might be particularly good. But again, that's going to be dependent upon the lens in general, I would have thought.
Cool. So we will find out soon. I mean, I don't know of many other 135 format lenses where you could. I mean, the 135 lights Elmar will also work, but I can't think of that many others that would be easy to do this kind of adaptation on, because there's not many where you can just unscrew the optical block with the aperture attached.
But again, that's going to be down to the optical formulation, isn't it? I mean, I mean, just because a lens has a longer focal length, I don't know if that immediately necessarily equates that it's going to have a larger image circle.
Right.
You know, there must have been reasons why Lights made that design and effectively used more glass than they needed to, and then a larger image circle, and it could have been it might have been easier to make it that way for some reason.
Because it's. Mm-hmm.
And I was going to say, those rules might not apply with the 135. It'd just be something peculiar to that particular focal length. I really don't know.
Yeah, because I mean, it's they did it with the early '90s Sumercon as well. Because I've seen people just take the optical block off and stick it on a helicoid. Johnny, do you know why they did that? Why they designed it that way?
The 90 millimeter. I think so.
the 90, 135, and also the 90 Sumercron, where you can basically just all the optics are in the front. Because I mean, the 90 f4 is you can just rip it off. Like you can just unscrew it. It's
so you can put them on a Visiflex to do close up stuff.
That makes sense. Okay. Yeah, because that larger image circle you only get when you take it off, as well, because the tube that the focusing assembly is built into, it effectively shrinks the image circle as well, because the light is kind of passing through that tunnel.
Yeah.
The other thing that's going on there is I'm making the assumption that these lenses aren't actually telephoto lenses as well, because I mean that's just something. I'm not a true expert on this by any stretch of imagination, but when people talk about lenses that are longer than normal or longer than standard lenses, 85 millimeter and upwards, people start talking immediately about telephotos, short telephotos, medium telephotos, and so on. Mm-hmm. And that's not necessarily the case, because telephoto isn't specifically talking about the focal length of a lens. It's the actual design of a lens, and some lenses which are longer focal lengths, and I'm pretty sure by the sounds of it, these lenses we're talking about, these Elmars and such, are not telephoto lenses, I'm guessing.
No.
Wait, what? But hold on. So a telephoto lens is where the length of the lens is shorter than the focal length, right?
Yeah. So
the Lights 9 centimeter f4 Elmar is definitely, I think it's shorter. It's really small.
It's narrow, but it's quite long.
It's not that long. It's not that the black one that I have it's not that long at all. But all the optics are contained in the front, so I don't know what that means for.
It's because it's a tessar,
right?
And so the lens that I mentioned earlier for Exakta, the 85 millimeter 2.8, it's the same exact. It's a tessar stuck on a long tube. Mm-hmm. That's how they all are.
Yeah,
right. There's no glass towards the back. It's all, the one cell, and then you put a tube behind it to get the right focal length.
And that's largely the same principle with large format lenses. I mean, there aren't many telephoto large format lenses. Most of them are conventional or normal in design. Right. And I mean, and you hear about such things as teletessars, which is obviously a telephoto tessar. So I think, you can't tell this with Elmar because they don't use. Can you get a tele Elmar? I don't know if they actually use that phrase or not.
They do actually.
Hold
on.
There's definitely a tele Elmar.
Right.
Well, 135.
Right.
Okay. Well, in that case, that's sort of lending a bit of weight to what I'm saying there, then. That these are not telephoto designs.
They are not. No.
Yeah. And it could be just that in itself, and you end up as a byproduct with a larger image circle. maybe. I don't know.
Right, because they're just tweaking the tessar so that the focus distance changes, right? And therefore corresponds with like whatever focal length they're calling it.
I mean, we will be getting Jason Lane back on, who can put us straight on this.
Yeah, that would be good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, we need to schedule that pretty soon, really.
Okay, so last question on this, Johnny. Is there a 50 that works on the VisoFlex? I seem to recall that there is.
Yeah, I'm sure there is. I don't know which. I can't tell you which one, but I know there is. Yeah.
Okay, because I'm just wondering whether or not there are any wider angle lenses that would work on a Pentax 6.7 this way. Although I doubt that there are any where the image circle will be large enough.
I think the problem is going to be the register distance. You can do it with something like like the Elmar, because the lens physically is a certain distance away from the film plane, right?
Right.
But anything wide angle is going to sit too close.
Yeah.
So it's, you know what I mean? You're not going to get, you're going to get super macro only.
Mm-hmm.
So, but you can get away with it on the tele lenses because I would think that you could do the same thing with there's a 135 Elmar that's the same basic design that I think you could do the same thing with that one.
Yeah, that definitely works. Someone has confirmed that to me.
Yeah, but wider than that, you're going to run into optics that aren't positioned correctly, right?
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, I will. I'm really looking forward to seeing what this looks like, because this is, a way to keep busy in these times. So I will report back once I have that build complete, and I'll post some pictures, because I'm sure this lens head will look really stupid on a Pentax 6.7.
Always a good reason to do it.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, so that's what I've been up to in this period of not being up to anything. Johnny, what about you?
I've not been up to anything either. It's been a very, as you can imagine, chaotic week. So,
So how's things over in Central Canberra then? Is it still open?
No, we're very, very much closed.
Yes, and I take it that's sort of pretty much open ended now, is it? You'll open when you open again, hopefully.
In theory, till April 7th. So, but I guess we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
There aren't any silver linings there, are there, really?
Yeah, it's a total silver lining. I don't have to go to work and get deadly illness. To me, I'm totally fine with that. That's 100% silver lining to me. So, yeah, it was like being a sitting duck there before they closed, because what are you going to do? People come in off the street. You have no idea if they have any regard for whether or not they think this is a big deal or not, and they're gonna handle all the cameras and put them up to their face and then hand them back, and hand you money and hand you their grubby freaking credit card that they probably had up their butt. I mean, you don't. I mean, I hate people. You don't know what they're doing. You don't know if they're clean. You don't know any of that stuff. So yes, I'm so glad we're shut down, because people are idiots. And I mean, I've got 20 something. So I don't care. I'll just get the virus. I don't care that I'll have immunity. I had 20 something say that shit. Assuming that the government is going to shut down everything by the end of the week, which is exactly what happened. So I'm really glad I didn't go to work to avoid the idiots. Yeah,
it's got to be difficult in a retail environment, as you say.
It's just I wish that I had lived during like a war and could have just got killed in a war, because this is like the lamest, stupidest way to die, is to get something like, you know what I'm saying? I mean, it's to just go to work and get sick and die is stupid. So people should just stay the hell home, And if they won't, then bring out the National Guard and shut everything down and keep their asses at home. So, yes, I am totally fine with the fact that everything is closed.
Well, this might be a good point to talk about something we were chatting earlier about, and what happens to us photographers in the current circumstances from a photographic point of view, and what we can, can't, should and shouldn't do. And I'm quite interested in hearing your take on this, Johnny, although I just get a sneaky feeling I might know what it is.
No, but here's the thing. It's not like you can't do anything right now, right? I mean, you can even still go outdoors. It's not like you cannot leave the house at all. It's like interacting and stuff, right? So, people are still doing things like that. So it's not like you can't, take photos and you can't shoot things a little closer to home. I mean, that's all totally acceptable, right? Mm-hmm. There's nothing wrong with that. So I don't know. I've always had the opinion that if you can't find anything interesting to do photographically in your own backyard, then you're not thinking hard enough or something. You know what I mean? Because there's always stuff to shoot. I mean, there are always things to do. It just, you got to look. That's all.
Yeah. And I think during this period, I feel like I've been shooting people wearing masks for months now. And here, I was out the other day, and there were, in one area called the West Kowloon Cultural District, there were dozens of people with film cameras out there shooting. And I've gotten messages from people on Instagram talking about different projects that they are doing during this time, because some countries are on total lockdown. Some places have, don't leave your house orders.
Yeah.
Here in Hong Kong, we started to kind of relax at the beginning of March, but now the measures are being, locked down again because of imported cases from abroad. And, I think whether you choose to, it's a really interesting time to document, whether you're just taking photos around the house and you'll look back and remember this time of isolation as just a transformative moment that you'll be glad that you've documented, or if you're able to go outside, and whether it's shooting empty streets or photos of people wearing masks, as long as you're not an idiot about it, like don't go licking the people who you photograph, then the same rules would apply for doing photography as they would like visiting your grandparents.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Like, be prudent. Don't think about others. Don't be an idiot. Wash your hands like crazy.
But that's a problem, Perry, is you come from a culture that is a bit more collective in its thinking. I don't think that's a controversial thing to say, right?
No, not at all.
Okay. But that's the problem with places like here, where people are all just idiots. I mean, nobody gives a second thought to anything other than what the hell they want to do. So it's harder when you can't, I think it's harder when people by and large are not giving as much thought to being safe. Right. So I think that's why the lockdown orders are probably a little bit different in different places, but I don't know. It's really difficult here. I mean, I think I wish everybody brought that level of, collective thinking to it, Perry, because what you just said totally makes sense. I mean, behave like you're going to go visit your grandparents or whatever. But there's a huge number of people who think this is just still think this is all complete BS, and all it's doing is hurting the economy. I mean, that's a huge opinion here still. Right?
I think, there's definitely a big cultural element of it. But I think the other thing too, which is probably bigger, is that places like Hong Kong and Taiwan, we got decimated by SARS, and places like South Korea, they got hit really hard by MERS quite recently. And so a lot of the kind of anxiety around these diseases, like we've seen what it can do. So I think, the sort of collective mentality is one thing, but I do think a lot of people are doing smart things to protect themselves in a kind of individualistic way as well. It's just like we remember 2003 and it was horrible, and this is way, way, way worse. And so the fact that like everyone is wearing masks, everyone is keeping their distance, everyone is like practicing good hygiene, and just, it's as much to protect yourself and your family, etc., as it is, a collective effort. But I think you're definitely right. That the rugged individualism of the West is not something that is as prevalent in Asia as well.
I think it's that thing about freedom as well. And that's probably where the UK and the US are quite similar in that attitude that freedom has been a big part of our way of life and our history. And I think when freedoms are curtailed or threatened to be curtailed, it's a really big deal.
Yeah,
and that's certainly the case here in the UK, where there's feels like a slow ramping up of what people can and can't do, possibly out of fear that we can't immediately go straight to some of the measures, perhaps like there's always this talk about Italy and about the lockdown in Italy, and people are saying, well, we're 2 weeks behind Italy and things like this, and there were lots of differences between many countries, that you can't take things literally to say, well, this is how many instances we've had in a certain period of time, so therefore we're at this point on the curve, because it just doesn't work that way. But you just get the feeling that imposing some kind of semi-martial law in many of the Western democracies would just be, I find it very, very difficult to even imagine it ever happening, and I think that's probably why some governments are being reluctant to go to that, but perhaps they're taking people in that direction so that if they do it, then there's more chance of it being complied with.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, places like Hong Kong and Taiwan, I think they also really value their freedom, because we're always, on the back door of the Chinese government breathing down our necks. But at the same time, especially in Taiwan, I think you see a really big collective effort to kind of recognize that there's sacrifices that need to be made by everyone to kind of, deal with this. But at the same time, here in Hong Kong, we have our fair share of idiots too. We had an influx of people coming into the airport, and 36 of them who were supposed to be under home quarantine broke their quarantine, and now the cops are after them. So it's not like, idiocy and that kind of individualistic, whether it's selfishness or a desire for your own freedom. There's plenty of that here too, and honestly, there's a lot of concern that we're going to have a giant outbreak as a result of like this sort of second wave resurgence. So back when this all started, I had no problem going out doing street photography and photographing people with masks on and stuff. But even now, I'm getting more and more reticent to go close to people, because it's like, I don't know where you've been.
Yeah.
Well, when you talk about going close, I mean, I'd be interested to see how this compares with the States and Hong Kong. But it's recommended that we don't go within 2 meters of somebody when we're out and about or whatever. I mean, do you have any figures you're told to stay away from a person?
No. I think that's a general global guideline, and it's just sensible practice anyway. Yeah. But here, the way that South Korea, Taiwan, and Hong Kong have been doing it is basically they're like testing like crazy, and everyone who gets the virus, they get quarantined, and then they trace like every single person that you've been in contact with, and then they contact those people and test them and kind of get them to self-isolate as well. So it's trying to keep track of not only every case, but like everyone they've contacted, and so that way everyone else, we don't have these sort of really stringent concepts like stay 2 feet away or blah, 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 blah.
Yeah. And that's what they're not doing here, because it's already too far out of hand. So,
right. Yeah.
So the opportunity to do that has long been lost in the US and the UK, which is why it's going to end up like Italy. So, yeah.
Yeah. That makes it all the more difficult to go out and do photography, because a place like Singapore, obviously they have a pretty draconian government, but the stuff that they're doing, is it Singapore or is it South Korea? But basically they're like able to tell you via your phone when you're in the vicinity of someone who's tested positive.
Oh my God.
So you can get the hell away.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So there's that. And then everyone sort of self-enforces social distancing because we're all terrified of getting this thing.
Yeah.
But as you said, so really there's a couple of things. The part of the advice is over here is don't do anything don't go out unnecessarily, but you can go out for exercise, and a lot of people will do photography as exercise. Sometimes it's the only reason why some people even go out the house anyway is to take photographs, and this is where I sort of. I think myself, there are opportunities out there at this moment which are extraordinary and would be worth documenting. And I mean, I saw something. I was in the car, and locally in Stoke-on-Trent, we have a delicacy called oat cakes. They're a bit like pancakes, but they're made from oatmeal. And I went past one of the oat cake shops that they have around here, and because. Well, actually, no. Takeaways are still allowed. They closed down restaurants, but no oatcake shop, or very few oatcake shops, could be ever classed as a restaurant. But they were handing oatcakes out through a slat, through like a ventilation window, and people are queuing up and just passing it through. And I was looking at it, I was thinking, that's extraordinary. This has possibly never been seen before, except perhaps if the owner's just lost the front door key. And I'm thinking, there are going to be so many opportunities out there for extraordinary scenes like that to be photographed. Yet, personally for me, I think to myself, well, is this essential for me to go out and take these photographs? And I honestly say, well, the answer is no. And that in itself, therefore, makes it very difficult for me to justify going out and actually taking photographs at the moment.
I see what you mean. I mean, there's been a lot of really powerful imagery coming out of people's daily lives. I mean, I saw pictures of empty streets in Chicago just today, or a photo out of the UK of there was a kid like playing tic-tac-toe with his grandpa through the door. So they were doing it on the window. So the kid was on one side of the door and the grandpa was on the other side of the door. Huh. And I think photographically, for me, I mean, I've kind of been in this mode since the protests started. But there's a line between sort of photography or even street photography and then documentary photography.
Right.
Where at a time like this, I don't know about the importance, but there is part of me that thinks, there is a genuine importance to do documentary photography at this time. Not necessarily to publish in newspapers and stuff. Obviously, the photojournalists are doing great work, but for yourself, right? As a photographer, when there's such upheaval and change, the process of documenting it can be both like therapeutic, but also incredibly unique. I mean, I just remember when all the protests were going on in Hong Kong, people like Mike Novak were saying to me, yeah, stay safe, but I'm also kind of jealous of you to have this opportunity to, photograph earth-changing moments. And this is far larger than the protests in Hong Kong, So I certainly spent a lot of time thinking about how and what can be documented at this time, so that when you look back on these photos, you'll be like, oh man, I'm glad I made those photographs to document what was happening.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What's making this harder for me? I'm staring across at a camera that's been loaned to me by a chap called Gilbert Townsend, and it's a Contax G2, and it's got a 35mm planar on it. And I'm staring at it, I'm thinking, that's exactly the camera to be walking around with at the moment if I was to walk around, which I'm not sure if I should or shouldn't do. So, temptation. Or is it a good thing? Who knows? It's a moral dilemma that many of us are facing at the moment. I mean, another issue out there as well is just, what's actually happening. It's pretty obvious what's happening with the economy in general, but it's also about what's happening to businesses in the photographic world. Let's just keep it with the photography side of things. and photographic businesses have been on the edge and going over the wrong side of the edge now for a good 20 years or so. And so there aren't that many, certainly on the bricks and mortar side of things, there aren't a huge amount of businesses actually left there. And, Johnny's wants to live and wants to stay healthy, and therefore his attitude is completely understandable to what's going on there. But there's only going to be so long businesses such as Central Camera are going to be able to hold out until it becomes no longer financially viable for them to pay their fixed costs and things like that. And that's an enormous worry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. See, I don't think it is, because this is all easily fixed by governments just doing the right thing, which is exactly the problem here. All you have to do, and other governments have done it, all you have to do is put everything on hold. I mean, it's doable, and people act like this is not doable. We're all just going to go. Trump said the same thing this morning. He's like, you can't do, the cure can't be worse than the fix or whatever. You know what I mean? But it's because people are more concerned about the money than they are about people. That's all it is. Period. End of story. It's just money over people, and that's what's going on in this country, and it's what's going on, it seems like, in the UK. And until it gets bad enough, the problem is it will get so bad before people realize it has to just be like martial law that it'll be too late. And that's why I don't care. I'm just staying home.
Yeah,
and I don't know how I'm going to pay my rent, but I figure things are going to get so bad so quickly, it won't be as much of a concern.
Right, because there's a difference between you being screwed individually and everyone being screwed together.
Exactly. Right.
And that's the boat that we find ourselves in. I mean, like here in Hong Kong, the camera shops and the photos, the film stores and stuff, they're still really, really lively and still really active these days. It's the restaurants and the hospitality that are really, really struggling, and in terms of, their monthly costs, and a lot of them have shut down. And at the end of the day, like, again, we come back to that idea that, in 2003 here, when we had SARS, we made those mistakes. Like, we waited until it got so bad that everything shut down. And this time, we had one case and freaked out. And unfortunately, it looks like other places around the world are just not heeding are just starting to slowly heed the severity of it all. So,
yeah, we'll see. I think it just needs to get really bad here before anything will happen, because that's the American way, is people are just going to ignore it until it's so bad that it can't be ignored, like every other problem that government could address that doesn't get addressed. So I don't know, whatever. I think Central Camera will be fine, because I know he's already asking his landlord for abatement, and the city is already talking about the city is already doing things for financing for small business owners. So if it's wide enough and deep enough, the problems will get solved. That's you know what I mean? That's why the more it affects people, the better, because that's the only point at which things will, government will step in. So whatever.
Yeah, and Central Camera survived World War I, the Spanish flu, World War II, right? Yeah,
I mean the landscape was much different then, though. Of course, I mean you had, there's something like 200 independent camera stores left in the entire United States, where there were 10,000 of them back in the pre-digital era. So I mean it's definitely a bigger deal than those other eras of time, because the business landscape is different for photography. But I don't think it's a non-survivable event for small business, because so many businesses are affected by it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if nobody's going to work, and nobody is making money for the people who make money by people making money, then everything falls apart, doesn't it? So you can't have your entire population unemployed and facing homelessness and still have the people who make money make money. So that's a good thing. So that's, to me, that's how it gets solved is when the people who have the money start suffering enough by loss of business that they realize that they can't just literally let the entire thing fall apart.
Yeah, I mean, in some ways, documenting this time is important, because when eventually comes time to ease our way out of it, you're going to see the kind of societal change that probably larger societal changes than we saw like after 9/11.
Totally, man.
After the SARS outbreak here, and but that process of coming out of it, at this point, you just don't want, you want as few people to die as possible during that period. Like that I think should be everyone's priority, whether you're going out to shoot or whether you're in government, right?
Yeah, exactly. So whatever, we'll see. But I think that, even if you're just taking photos of nothing going on, right, around your house and in your immediate vicinity, whatever, it's still a document of this time and place. I think what you said, Perry, like, if for you personally is why it matters, right? Mm-hmm. So the photography that people do now will be a marker for that, right? It'll be part of their experience personally of this era, which is an unprecedented era, which, things will not be the same after this. So whatever people do photographically is going to be a reflection of that, even if it's not a picture of someone wearing a mask. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, that stuff's important. I mean, it really is.
Yeah. Well, with the current backdrop, it's we'll head over to what I've been up to, because I'm launching a new range of lens caps.
All right.
in this climate, we've touched upon these lens caps I'll be making, and they've finally a few of these more of these have gone live now, and I've had the Exakta caps out for a while, but I've also made them for Pentacon 6 Konica AR. I've just finished designing and making one for Roller QBM, which was an absolute git of a design to do. So that's done, and I've also just finished off Miranda. Not literally. And I don't know how many people are going to want Miranda lens caps, but I just happen to have a Miranda lens. I was thinking, well, you can't go out and buy yourself a Miranda lens cap very easily. So I did that, and I've also got Contax Kiev inner bayonet lens caps. Basically, I'm going around looking at lens caps which you can't get easily, because you can get hold of Canon FDs and Nikon caps and M42, M39s, LMs, and all that kind of stuff, because they can be tuned out in the millions with injection molding. But people aren't going to go to the lengths of tooling up equipment to serve the capacity really that's there for some of these smaller minor caps. So that's when I come in. So I'm making these lower volume caps, and so I think I've got, is that 7 I've done? No, six I've done so far, and I have plans for some more. And so if you're interested in those, they're on my eBay site, and I've also got them up on my website as well, because I haven't really done much with my website recently, which is simonforsterphotographic.co.uk, and I've put them up there as well. And there's some, if you buy more than 3, I think the deal's better on my website than it is on eBay. If you're buying 2, you're probably better off getting them on eBay, or if you're buying 1, it doesn't really matter either way. So So that's my completely shameless plug in an effort to actually earn some money. That's the downside of being in a retail business, whether that be a shop or an online business such as my own, because we are generally more interested in keeping ourselves safe and making sure we've got enough money to pay the future bills. So buying things like lens caps or new lenses and things like that, it's for many people that's not going to be an easy purchase to make. So but if you've got the means and you still wish to take photographs, then there's no reason for you to stop as long as you stick with those guidelines, really.
Yeah, and lens caps will prevent coronavirus from getting into your lens.
Yeah.
Very important.
I was just talking myself into a state of depression there, so thank you for that. So that's my week, so let's do some emails, because we haven't done too many emails recently, and we've got quite a few to go through. So let's go for it.
All right. Oh, let's see. Where do we start? We did the Canon FD one, right?
Mm-hmm.
Should we start with David Ortega? Mm-hmm. David Ortega wrote us on March 6th. His subject is M39 to M42 aperture iris. He says, "Hi guys, just listened to the latest episode. I'm a new listener. I've been taking lenses out of broken plastic AF point and shoots, Mu, Canon ML35, AF35, and was wondering if this would work as a good aperture or not, and then find a way to mount the lens to an M42 focus helicoid. I copied the link to the eBay item in question, iris diaphragm aperture with male, female M42, M39, female thread ring activated," and then there's a link. Hope to hear from you guys soon. P.S. I want to use them on my Zeiss Icon RF camera, so this way I could have an inexpensive way to expand my range of lenses for it. Okay. I'm just opening this link to see what he's about. Oh, okay.
Yeah, these things. Yeah. I have one of these. I have one of these things.
Okay. So yeah, this is just an aperture that goes in between it's basically a short extension tube with an aperture in it. Yeah. Okay.
I've used these. Have you guys?
I haven't, but I have a sneaky feeling I know what you're going to tell us. But I'm interested in hearing your experience.
So it depends, because the placement of the iris is actually quite important for a lens. I assume by Zeiss Icon RF, by the way, he means that the Zeiss Icon ZM. So he's going to be basically zone focusing these things. Here's the problem. When you stick the iris behind the rear element, on a lot of lenses, you're basically going to be shrinking the image circle substantially as a result. And so a lot of the lenses that I have had mounted onto my sort of external iris, as this thing is, you can see the aperture close down. And so rather than getting an extended depth of field, you just get more and more and more dark corners and vignetting, right? Some lenses don't do that, and it really depends on the lens and also the kind of original placement of the iris within that lens, because like the placement of the aperture is an inherent part of the like optomechanical design. So you can't just stick an aperture in the back. Sometimes it works, the same way that you might stick like a heart-shaped, those heart-shaped things in front of a lens that you cut out of black paper to make heart-shaped bokeh.
Yeah.
Sometimes it works like that and you're fine, but sometimes it does not. And the only way to find out is to try.
Yeah, I mean, you've said more than I was going to say there, but that's it would help if the thing was a little bit larger, I guess. But even so, even if it was it was wide enough to let everything through it when the lens is wide open. Well, the lens is always wide open if it hasn't got an aperture, but it's not covering the rear elements. As you say, I'd say that position is critical. and there's like nodal points and all this kind of stuff that Jason Lane understands better than we do. So no, it's not. It might work sometimes, but it's certainly not the silver bullet for resolving this problem. Unfortunately, wish it was, but no.
Yeah, and it will. I'm not sure if this is true, but I think it will work better on. Actually, I'm not going to say. I was going to say I think it'll work better on longer lenses than shorter ones, but I have no idea if that's true. I think that can't be true. I think it just depends on the lens.
There are and some older lenses, though, some older lens designs, they actually have the iris at the front of the lens. Mm-hmm. So, not entirely sure if that would actually be. It's not going to solve the problem that is trying to resolve here, but that could also be a way of dealing with it in a different kind of way. I'm not sure what the effect would be on that.
But again, it depends, because sometimes you can put something entirely over the front of a lens and just kind of change the shape of the bokeh. But sometimes, like, even a lens hood gives you black corners, right?
Yeah.
So it really depends on a lens by lens basis, I think.
Yeah.
Because it's all about the way that the light rays go out, right? And if the light rays are already starting to kind of spread out as they come out the back of the lens, then you're basically just cutting that off with this aperture.
Yeah.
All right. Next up, hey, apropos, huh? From Ulf. The subject is Telezenar. And he says, hi, any opinions on this lens? Pictures attached. And any suggestions on how it could be adapted? Googling for it, it seems to fit AkArette and AkArette, and the like. Regards, Ulf. I have no idea what he's talking about.
I just Googled it, and it's actually a type of camera.
Okay.
Yeah, it's it looks like it's a weird looking camera. It looks like a rangefinder.
This is I think he's got the spelling wrong.
The spelling is right.
Struggling with here.
Yeah, I Googled AkArette and CameraBau, and the camera is called the AkArette, and the company is AkArette und CameraBau GmbH.
The AkArette or AkArette? That's what I'm...
AkArette.
Yeah, AkArette. That's what I mean.
So the camera name is AkArette.
Right, which is why I said he spelled it wrong. That's why I'm confused.
Yeah.
AkArette.
And then the manufacturer.
Right. Because the AkArette is a 39 thread, but it doesn't fit. It's not LTM.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. So it's one of those things where it's not gonna. Yeah. It won't fit anything unless you have the right adapter for it.
I'm just looking at the picture at the mount, though. I'm struggling to work out how that even attaches to a camera. I can't see a bayonet. I can't see a thread.
Yeah, that's a weird looking rear. Mm-hmm. Right, because there's no thread. Yeah,
but you'll see lenses. Lenses will turn up that have. There'll be an LTM version of that lens. Like, I'm looking at a picture of one right now that's got a 45 millimeter Xenar on it, but unless you have the right adapter, it's not going to go on to anything. So,
it does look like the native mount is a bayonet of some sort, and then there's an AkArette to L39 adapter out there. Oh, it's 3 printed.
Right. So it's one of those odd mounts that there's not a lot of adapter and so forth options for.
Mm-hmm.
They're out there. You can find them. But they tend to be lenses that already exist in LTM anyway. So there's that too.
Yeah. I've seen this lens before. I think Nigel Cliff had one of these once upon a time. But not in this mount.
Right.
Interesting one. So that's our answer there. It's not going to be easy.
Good luck.
Yeah.
Our answer is good luck. Okay. Morgan Rout wrote us on March 4th. Subject: Fort Nugget. Hey, Johnny and gang, greetings from Lexington, Kentucky. Huge fan of the Classic Lenses podcast, even though I don't do photography. I'm a cinematographer. I listen to the Classic Lenses podcast about helicoids and have an issue with a lens that I think you may be the perfect person to ask if I may. I primarily use Micro Four Thirds mount cameras, GH5 and Blackmagic cinema cameras, 4K. I have mostly EF and M42 glass that I pair with a Metabones Ultra 0.71 speed booster, which works great for my EF lenses. I then use an M42 to EF on top of that to use my Takumar and Soviet lenses, which is also fantastic. However, I recently bought a silver Jupiter 9 85 millimeter f2 M39 mount, and for the life of me cannot find a simple M39 to EF adapter because I don't think it can be done. You are correct. The only fix I've seen was a helicoid type of fix that the user said M39 cannot fit into EF because of the flange distance, and if you are able to adapt it, renders range and infinity and basically makes your lens only good for macro. Long-winded, I know, but is this true? Should I avoid M39 and stick to M42 with my setup? Thank you very much for your time, Morgan Rout. So, yeah, LTM lenses are not going to work on EF.
No.
Period. So
because of the flange distance. Yeah.
Right.
But just
although,
sorry.
Well, I mean, this is the moment where we have to clarify the stupid nomenclature, right? Because M39 and L39 and LTM are not the same.
Right.
And there are M39 SLR lenses that can be adapted to SLR, other SLRs, but not M39, L39, LTM rangefinder lenses because the flange distance is too short.
Yeah.
Exactly. So the other Jupiter 9 will work if you find an M42 one.
Yep. Work just fine.
That would work, but not.
There may well be a 39 M30 thread that will work on it as well.
Yep.
Yeah, which is the kind I've just been alluding to.
Right. So the M39 with an SLR register distance will work with a 39 to 42 ring on it. It'll work just fine.
Right? Almost just fine.
Yeah, well, I mean, once you put the ring on, it's going to work just like a 42 lens.
It may not get to infinity. That's because when you just add. I mean, I call these things Zenit or ZM39. So Zenit M39. That's the way I describe them. And the flange focal distance is fractionally less. Off the top of my head, it's fractionally less than M42. So if you just literally convert it to M42 from M39, then you will be. My head's going now. But basically, you won't get infinity, or you may not get infinity because it's designed to sit slightly closer to the mount than M42 does. Or is it? Close.
It may not give you an exact M42 flange distance, so you can't just stick an M42 to EF adapter on it and then roll with that.
Yeah. Which is the reason why I like focusing helicoids when using Zenit M39 lenses, because you can therefore get an infinity focus if you want to, because you've got a variable focus platform, so you can get your lens exactly the right distance away from your sensor just by using that M39 to M42 adapter ring. But in general, if it's a rangefinder M39 or L39 or LTM39,
if it's a rangefinder, it's not M39. Period.
Yeah,
and that's why it should never be used in the same sentence. It's LTM. It's like a thread mount, right? So which is a totally different register distance. So if it's an LTM Jupiter 9, it will never work on your EF.
That's it. Mm-hmm. Well, that doesn't mean that the seller won't call it LTM39.
No, exactly.
It's actually completely different.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. So
totally.
Buyer beware.
Buyer beware.
And if I sold my Jupiter 9 a while ago, but you know how you can just unscrew all of the optics? Mm-hmm. Even then, you still won't be able to like put it on a helicoid and get infinity.
Yeah.
Right. Because it's not like the Lights Elmar, where the optics are all the front. It stretches all the way. It stretches pretty far back, right?
I'm not so sure about that.
I'm not sure.
It would not surprise me if they're optically the same, and it's just the length of the block.
Now, if that's the case, I don't know if either of you have a Jupiter 9 handy that you can rip apart.
I've got a Nikon, 85 centimeters. That's the same kind of thing, isn't it?
I don't know if they're exactly the same. But basically, what we're talking about here, to clarify for Morgan, is with a Jupiter 9 LTM, if you grab the front of the lens around the aperture ring and just twist it like counterclockwise with the glass facing you, basically unscrew it.
Yeah. By the way, you definitely can't do that with the. I've remembered now. It's got a definite hard stop, so you can't do that with the LTM Nikkor 8.5 centimeters. So please do not try this at home.
No, not the Nikkor. The Jupiter 9, you can. You can just unscrew the damn thing. And if the rear element is not right at the back of that assembly that comes out, you might be able to MacGyver this onto a helicoid. I'm not sure. And I don't know. I vaguely remember the Jupiter 9, the rear element is pretty. It's relatively far back.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, this Nikkor. I mean, I'm talking about the Nikkor, and it's probably worth just explaining. Well, we're not talking about a Nikkor. We're talking about the Jupiter 9, which is based off the Carl Zeiss Jena Sonar 8.5 centimeter f2, which the Jupiter. So that's got the same lineage, and that lineage also carried through to the Nikkor LTM lens. So yeah, it is actually quite close to the back, much further closer to the back than I expected it to be. So I'm wrong. So there we go. I said it.
Whoa! It really is the after times. But yeah, I mean they're both 85 f2 sonar copies, so
yeah,
optical layout will be similar. Cool.
Okay.
So no, keep using it on Micro Four Thirds.
Yeah, that's it. So on that bombshell, have we got another one?
I think that's it, because the other one was FD, right? Which we did, apparently.
Have we? Oh no, that was something else. That was. Yeah, I think we have. I think we've caught up, which is good.
Sweet.
Yeah. Okay. Right, and so we've done most of the things we were planning on doing. Is there anything else we want to chat about before we disappear?
Not really.
I don't think so.
Okay. All right then. So let's. Someone's had quite an abrupt end. We've come to that. Okay, let's thank those people that have made their way to our coffee page. That's the place where, if you wish, you can donate to the running of the show. And let me get the right page up, because that's not the right one. I should have had this sorted before we started, shouldn't I? But there you go. There we go. Classic Lenses Podcast. That's us. And I'm not sure if we skipped this last week or not.
We didn't have a show last week, so
that's right. Yeah. Okay, so let's go back in time a fair bit, but some of these don't look too familiar. So let's go to start of May, because we had a donation from Ricardo Bayon of Best Vintage Lens. And I'm not sure if I've said this one before, but it's probably worth reading it out again. This goes back to the 2nd of March, this does. And it goes, here is your reward for talking digital cameras and adaptive budget SLR lenses, and for keeping talk of rangefinders and frame lines to an absolute minimum. I'm hoping to use a cup of coffee as a sort of Pavlovian training took. Is it working? If I understood, I could tell you, Ricardo. So, but thank you all the same there. And we also had a donation from Lawrence Dunn, Nigel Cliff on the 6th of March saying, amazing how Johnny and Perry gave us another thoroughly enjoyable show without Simon's adult supervision. So that'll be referring to the show where I disappeared. And we've also got donations from James Thorpe again, Brian Walworth again, and Mike Epstein again, which came through today. So thank you very, very much for the help that you give us there. Right, so Perry, have you got any shout-outs this week?
Do I have any shout-outs? A quick shout-out to, once again, the folks at Little Garden for helping me put together that build for the Helios 33. I'm enjoying that a lot, and I will be seeing them very, very soon, possibly tomorrow, to do these Pentax 6.7 mods.
Excellent. And Johnny, any shout-outs?
I don't have any because I haven't been at the shop.
Okay, and I haven't got a shout out either. There's still no 6 Towns Darkroom anymore because of coronavirus. So let's move to where people can find you, Perry, on the internet.
You can find me on Instagram and Flickr at PerryG, or visit my never updated website at perryg.com.
Okay, and Johnny?
You're not going to find me anywhere because I'm not at Central Camera and I'm not updating my Instagram still. So you're out of luck. You can find me at the Classic Lenses podcast.
Facebook group.
The Facebook group, and also just on our webpage, classiclensespodcast.com.
That's cool. And if anybody wants to get in touch with us, what's the best way to do that?
Send them to classiclensespodcast@gmail.com. Send us an email and we will read it.
Excellent. And if people are interested in Instagram and Classic Lenses, what's a good thing to do?
That would be Best Vintage Lens on Instagram. So go there to see lots of photos made with vintage lenses. And you can also find us on YouTube at Classic Lenses Podcast on YouTube. So check that out as well.
That's more of a listening experience rather than a watching experience on your side.
Yeah, listening and watching computer-generated subtitles.
That's it.
Captions.
Okay, and I can be found on Twitter as Simon4. I'm on Instagram as Simon Forster Photographic. I have my website, I'm not going to really call it newly invigorated website, because it's not really. It's just the same website as before, except now it's got lens caps on it. And that's simonforsterphotographic.co.uk. Where else am I? I do another podcast every 2 weeks called the Large Format Photography Podcast with Andrew Bartram, which is a good listen, I think. So that's just about it. Our music is by Kevin MacLeod of incompetech.com. And really, 2 things to say is stay safe and be like Carl.
Wash your hands.
And stay away from me.